What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Grab Your Torch with Caleb and Joel. We are back to recap a strange episode 4 of
Weird.
Survivor 46. What were your thoughts on the episode, Joel?
It was a weird episode for sure. Obviously this is the faded Banu boot, but I felt like a lot of I don't really know where the season's heading, which you would think is a good thing, but like it's kind of in a way where I'm like I don't know who I need to like focus on or like root for. Which like it's good like in season 41, like you didn't know who was gonna win, which I thought was like a positive aspect of it. But here we're not seeing like anyone's like point of view, nothing like innately interesting is happening outside of Purple Tribe. But I think it's kind of wearing thin at this point.
Right. The lines are not drawn in the sand for the other two tribes, is what I'm kind of gathering because we know what's up with Purple. Like if they go again, I think Tiffany's the center, and she could either go with Kinsey or go with Q. But like because we've heard them talk strategy and they've had to vote people out. So there's that. But on the other side, there are people on the other tribes that are just angsty to like get going in the game and to actually vote people out. And what we've seen from the new era is that only Erica is the only person who went immune out of all the challenges and won. So
Yeah.
in the pre-merge. So it's definitely possible, but is it super probable? I would also say yes, because there's a majority of the people left are on the other two tribes. And I think any winner content, quote unquote, we've seen is from those other two people. Like, for instance, I love Hunter. Like, he's
Mhm.
like a top pick for sure. And he's gives like such old school vibes with the way he like destroys challenges. He absolutely hacks them. And then you also see him saying, hey, I want to work with Tevin. Soda's kind of in my way there. So I want to cut Soda so I can be the closest with Tevin. And that's just like a classic, like, confessional. He's not
Mhm.
like over the top like Banu is, where Banu's just like yapping a bunch in his
I
confessionals about
It's time to
whatever.
say it. It's
Who
time to say it. I'm
knows?
putting him top three yapper in Survivor history.
Top
He
three
might be number
yapper.
one. It is like ridiculous how much
Yeah.
he yaps. And like I hope he won 1,000,000 hearts, man. But like, holy, he had a ton of screen time. But like to your point, I think Hunter is doing great in the game. I think another person that really shined this episode is Jim.
Yeah.
They love Jim.
Well,
She
what do
had
you
a
think? What do
Twitter
you think
quote.
about that move?
I think it's weird. I get the idea of it. Like you're so bored out there. They're like, I don't remember what day they're on, but they've been out there for more than a week. And like at some point you want to do something. You have the idol, you know you have it, or she doesn't have it, but she could get it. And she could like make up some stuff. But a part of me is like, I thought the whole point of the Green Tribe was the vibe tribe. Like we're together no matter what.
Right.
Like every single time you see that tribe, they're all together,
hmm
never doing something else.
I think that in a merge when if it's either Siga or Nami's breaking apart. Like they're the one that they're the tribe that's gonna get absolutely demolished. I feel like Siga's so close, and then any people left of Yanu's just gonna be going with whoever.
Mhm.
So who knows what's gonna happen? I don't want it to be another like people like another group like alliance just decimate like we've seen the last two seasons.
Yeah.
It'd be
It's
fun to see it
just
mixed up a little bit, but
so easy to break the game from that now, and everyone's seen
right,
it,
right.
especially
Yeah,
with
they got to see like the whole season 44 before
like
they
they
went out. So
and they're about to see it again with those three going into merge and Banu, which we'll talk about all of this as well. But like Banu admitting to them that like, hey, I said that Tiff and Q were a duo. I said that Kinsey
he's
is
the
like
mastermind.
like I was like he could not have played that any worse. He had a shot and he ruined it.
Speaking of yapping,
Oh my gosh. But I think I mean this was just a Bonu episode through and through.
part
Um
two, because last week was when he should have gone home.
yeah, and I know it just kind of like pushed forward. I think one of the just going into the immunity challenge because I think it was one of the better immunity. I like this immunity challenge in general. It's very like Kagion, like where they're trying to shoot the basket
Yeah.
and it's like yelling at the person to give me the ball, and it's like Bonu in the water. But I've never seen it happen where
Oh, it's
someone has to
the it's the
jump.
episode when they try to throw it,
Yeah.
but Brain's Tribe's just so bad.
Yeah, they just can't get it. And Spencer's just like kicking the ground.
Yeah.
No, I was like, first off, the first three guys in the water, that was insane. Like they were like flying. And even Jeff Probst is just like impressed by Hunter because Hunter just
Right.
like hopped half the distance.
Yeah. He
And
dived straight to the buoys and he just
I was
grabbed
like,
it and went.
everyone
Yeah.
was just like, this guy's insane. And
Yeah.
it's not even a way that like Jonathan, like
No.
what Jonathan
It's
did,
not
like
like yeah. It's not like an insane like fit. He's just like the skill of everything he's got.
Mhm.
And I think that's helped him so much.
Yeah, because Jonathan can't freaking do a puzzle to save his life.
No.
But like he was just such a brute out there that he could get through any challenge easily.
But he just completely aced those basketball shots. Like that was crazy. Just
Yeah, I
like
was like, he was just
boom,
like granny.
boom, boom.
He was like
Yeah.
granny style. I was like, what are you doing?
Getting ready for March Madness.
Oh, he knows it. But the funniest part of this whole challenge was to me was like it's pretty much neck to neck the entire time. And like obviously Nami's getting ahead because Hunter. But like Banu just jumping in, doesn't go up the crate, just like completely disregards it and jumps in and like Jeff Probst just loses his mind. He's like, "You gotta go back. What are you doing?" Oh, I've never seen that happen. I was like, Bonnie, what are we doing, buddy? Like,
He just like looks at the blocks and says no and just walks into jumps into the wall.
it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just I know a lot of discourse has been like, would we really be feeling this way about the season if we just didn't see the Lulu losers go through this exact same thing? But I feel like this is different because
This is
first off, that swap,
yeah.
and then
Which that's really hurting the pacing. The pre-merges in the new era have been let's lackluster to say the most. Say the
play the
most.
most.
Yeah. Just nothing except for season 41. That was a good
That's fun.
pre-merge.
I liked it.
And entertaining. But like other than that, there's two quits last season. We've had several medical evacuations in the pre-merge of other seasons, like Matthew and Bruce in 44, and
Mhm.
then Jackson, I think, in season 42. Just stuff like that. It just kind of hurt over and over and over again. People just getting pulled. We get Randa get pulled here. And the votes, since we don't have any swaps, I mean, except for last season, which helped a lot with the pre-merge, and it was one of the better pre-merges I'd add, except for the quits. Like that really tanked it a lot. But when you don't have any way to scramble it up a bit, Jeff's so much about wanting to make the game fresh and keep players on their toes, but they can predict everything. They can predict at this point there's not going to be a swap. Next, they can also predict that they're mergatory at 13, double thing at 12 or 10, and then off to the races from there. Fire making at 4, final 3 versus final 2. All these things that used to be variable. You don't know what would happen. All of a
Mhm.
sudden, it's just so formulaic. 3 tribes of 6. We don't have a 2 tribe start anymore. Like just the different things like that. If we're gonna keep losing that, and the only variation is gonna be like, oh, losing your vote here and there on these different journeys, like that's not keeping your players on their toes, because when someone sees a beware advantage, they know it involves them losing their vote. Like they already know what it involves. Like
Mhm.
maybe not the exact task they have to do, but they know that they're probably gonna lose their vote, and that to do this random task, you can get the idol. Like it's just the same thing. And we're not even getting an auction this season either. Like that's just another thing um that we don't have to look forward to for season 46. So I feel like with this formula it's just drawing dead. I don't know.
No, I definitely agree. This we've seen how bad we've seen the goods and bads of it. Where I just think that first off, losing your Flint, having like such little food, it kind of like breeds this down like the spiraling of most tribes, where you get to see it with Tika, you got to see it last season was Lulu, now you with Yanu. Like you lose that first tribe or first immunity, and then you lose it again, like you're spiraling. You don't have food, you don't have fire. you have nothing, and it leads to like the same formulaic. And it was weird because I mean they filmed this back to back with 45, so I don't know why they're just not a swap. But
My only
I
guess is like them thinking it was 40 minutes and they're like, oh, we don't have time to do a swap and like explain all that. Which doesn't make any sense to me because they've done so much before the new era. Now we
yeah.
with the 90 minutes in 26 days, which is a lot less content, 2 weeks less of content in a season
Mhm.
and 30 more minutes per episode. Like this is the worst time in Survivor history to get 90 minutes. Like,
I know.
I'm glad we have it, but if we had it like heroes versus villains, like just think about how much
We
better
have a
that could have,
lot
like how much every
of,
season beforehand could have been enhanced with the 90-minute episodes.
but we
And
get it for
so,
46. Very
yes,
cool.
we get it for 46.
Hmm.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's okay. I was thinking like I'm pretty sure we talked about it last week, but I still am under the impression that they should swap at Final 14 into two tribes, no mergatory. Instead of mergatory, you just merge.
Yeah,
And it's just like a normal Survivor season without all this like wonkiness of the merge vote, where the merge vote is like you're cut in half
right.
and like forced to take out like this random person.
I mean,
And
it's cool like once in a while, but they do it every single season, so there's just no way to have any variation.
I do think like I think Rob had a podcast talked about it too of like this idea of the final two versus the final three. And it's more I don't really care if it's a final two or final three because these last couple seasons it's mostly just been a final two, just with a zero vote finalist essentially. But I do think it, adds like this level of like imagine this season they get to the end and they're like, oh, it's a final three, and then Jeff's like, you have one more challenge. And everyone's just like, oh my gosh, like
Yeah.
that adds so much intrigue where you're like, this final immunity challenge means so much now.
Mm.
Where like fire making isn't the end all be all, which is my biggest thing. Where in like, yeah, imagine if been one fire making and you still had to go into the final two. I think that's way more fair for everyone. And so that's just my thing. This season has been a bit of a drag. I can't blame them. They weren't ready for this much content, but I also don't think this cast is necessarily giving a lot, and it's a lot because
Well,
two of the
they don't
tribes
have
are
much to, yeah. Yeah, they're not going to tribal. We don't know where the lines are being drawn. Like that was the same with oh I don't even remember the blue tribe from last season. I forgot what they're called. But
uh,
like we get to see Couture versus Bruce, like the random Couture versus Bruce update every week, but they didn't really go to tribal
that
until
was
like
funny though.
until
It
the
was just
swap, you know?
it,
We got
and
some
the
more
swap
yeah,
literally pushed it to the forefront. Like it was a
yeah.
big point at that point.
So
I think
I just different things like that just enhance the game so much. And it's sad that they did it in 45. Why didn't we see these things in 46? And I think that's hurting the season a lot
mhm.
because if you think if Brandon didn't get hurt, we would be down to two people on Yanu. Like because they've lost every immunity challenge. Like and all like I think Kinsey shouldn't even be here right now. And she's the one that should be praying to God about that. But
Yeah.
and
I don't know,
thinking
but
for the miracle, but
yeah. I think we should talk about because this episode, I mean, we could talk about how Charlie loves Taylor Swift or all that, but this is the Banu like conclusion. Overall, what were your thoughts on Banu as a character, as a player? Like,
I when I first like when we first started getting into like all the Banu content, I was like, oh my gosh, he cannot play the game. But once you realize that he was never going to be able to play the game well, like, wait, I have to lie to Jeff, different things like that. Saying at tribal, like, oh, let's time to vote after suggesting he was voting for Zelensky and basically just like showing his cards everywhere he went. I feel like I can appreciate that he was not a game bot, that we actually got to see an interesting character that, you know, went out, played Survivor. He made a lot of mistakes, but you gotta accept him for who he is in that regard. Like he was a person that was never gonna he was probably the person that Jeff was talking about
Yeah,
at
it
the
was
beginning of the
like
season.
one of you
You know,
is
it's
never
just
going to win.
never
It's just
going to
like
win.
staring at Banu.
Yeah, it's just staring at Bonnie. But another the one thing that does disappoint me is that the whole million hearts thing. Like, sure, that's part of it, but the main idea for going out there is to win $1 million. And if Survivor's not casting people who want to win $1 million and become a sole survivor,
Mhm.
then I think there's some issues. Like Coach, one of the most insane people ever to be on Survivor, he still wanted to win $1 million, like pretty badly. We got to see,
He still does.
just how much he still does. He would still probably come back to this day.
Oh,
He sold the final three of South Pacific,
rip. Hate to
but
see it.
still, like he
Would love to
was
see it.
fighting tooth and nail to try to win. And he was also an interesting character. Same thing with like Philip Shepard. He's also insane,
He
and
wanted to win very
he
bad.
he wanted to win very bad as well. Like if you're casting people who want to win, you get to see, like, if let's just think, like, if Banu was someone who wanted to win, how much more interesting of a character would he have been? If would he have tapped into more strategic play at all? Like, it's something to think about. And I think that was also part of the reason for, the two quits last season. I think both of them weren't in it for the $1 million. They're in it for the journey.
They both
And
said it.
they both said it. And I know Jeff's getting soft, but like this is something that's important and vital to this game because it's ultimately at the end of the day a competition. And I think that if you're going to go out on this island, meet a bunch of people, compete in this insane game that only 18 people get to do per season, 30, like that's 36 people a year get to try this and try to win $1 million. Like you have to be like, I am going to win. I'm going to fight to the end. Like that's why I like Dee so much. She was doing everything she could to win, and she wanted to win that money.
Her whole thing was like, I'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah, and that's why I respect her as a winner so much. And I think that's the root of the issue. That's I think Bonu's a great guy. He was
He's a great
entertaining,
guy.
but it's you just gotta have to want to win. That's
I agree.
ultimately at the end of the day. I think
I
that's the
think,
main.
yeah, I completely agree. Bonu, I think, was a great person to put on the cast. Just he's someone you have to work around. Someone so crazy that you have to like essentially coddle him at every moment, which I think is good. I just believe it's like you said, it's an issue with casting. I when you get 18 or what is it? Yeah, 18, 20 people out there to play the game, all of them trying very hard. Think about the last what have you had? Fifth 43 winners? Like I don't remember one of them. Like all of them wanted to win so badly. Not one of them was like, "Oh my gosh, I accidentally did it." Like, sure, you can argue that, but like at the end of the day, they didn't quit. They didn't like they used strategy at some point or won immunity or did something. And that's what makes Survivor fun. If we saw Bonnie go all the way to the end and like, I don't know, just be this super nice, like says whatever kind of player, it would have definitely ruined a lot of Survivor where you're like, oh, I could just do that. And he would have just won just because he was the most likable person, which is fine. It's a good way to win. But I think just in casting wise, I want people who have a bite to them, someone who won't literally like get on their knees and like bang. Like that was crazy.
Yeah.
I'd be you'll never catch me doing that. But was like, please. And Tiff was like, I love Tiff with all my
Yeah.
heart. She's my favorite character of the season. She was like, get up. I'm not gonna talk to you. Like
Yeah.
she's so straightforward. I love her. But like, geez, for me, Banu, I just wish because I felt like he was a super fan, like he
Yeah.
knows. Um, but like, geez, it was a rough go for him.
It really was. And I think of him explaining everything he told, like on the journey when he told them at the beginning of the episode. And then later when he was trained by Q to like think different things to say, how to play Survivor, like Survivor 101 with Coach Q. I feel like that was a great moment. But then he comes to Kenzie and's like, "Hey, can you teach me some tips?" And she's like, I'm not feeling it right now. I'm sorry, I'm
He's like, I
tired.
want 5 minutes. I just want 5 minutes.
Just 5 minutes would be great."
He
And then he
loses it.
just storms off. and cries and says, "Woe is me," and then that makes Kenzie feel bad and have to need to apologize. Like he needed so much coddling in the short time he was out there. And I think my problem is not with him because all that was like it was funny because with my family we were all laughing like all my friends were all in there just like laughing so much about what was going on in the episode.
Mhm.
Um, but he had 35 confessionals, which is an insane amount of confessionals to have in 4 episodes. If it puts some perspective into you, I was listening to another podcast and they threw out the stat that Heidi had less confessionals than that in season 44, and she was the final. She was second place.
Yes. He was like one away from Erica,
Yeah,
who like won.
who
Like
won?
is
Yeah,
first off,
it's
that is like
actually
ridiculous. Our the editing has not been great. I would say last season's editing was pretty good actually, but like
yeah. I mean,
but
I can sing the praises of season 45 all day. It's been by and away the best new era season.
oh yeah.
And we were even talking about that like at this point in the game when we had 2 quits. Like after Sean's quit, we were still like,
It's just like
well, this is good, but like
this might have been like the
why are these
right
quits
before
happening? But
the
this is good.
this was like right before the Caleb shot in the dark.
Right.
Like we hadn't even gotten to the best part of the season, and we are like, this is probably the best pre-merge. And it's brutal to watch. I do think there's been a lot of fun moments. I like the camp life a lot. Like honestly, seeing Mariah not being or what Mariah is it Mariah? There's so many Mariahs.
Oh,
Like
Mariah not being able to jump.
that was insane. She was like,
That was a great scene
I
as well.
some of my friends, I'm like, dude, she's like negatively jumping. Like she's hitting the ground as she jumps. Like she's getting no height.
I was like, there's no way you can't jump. Like that's crazy.
Then she was like, I can't. And I was like, it was crazy because she would move her like lower legs,
Yeah.
but then, like, her knees would just like stay like it was like capped
Complete.
off there. I was like,
Right.
I was shocked. And then she competed in the challenge. I was like, oh my gosh. She was lucky it wasn't the key one.
Right.
Truth be,
If it was the key one, she would have been screwed.
I would have been like, oh,
I
been
think
like,
she had to because of the new like sit out rules. Like she had to compete in
yeah,
the thing. But yeah, that was a great scene. We could talk a little bit more about that. Just like the whole gym like idle goose chase scene. I really don't think that's gonna benefit fit her in the long run at all. Like I don't see how that can, you know, do good for her game. Just because what's obviously no one's ever gonna find it. All it's gonna do is everyone's gonna be like, all right, someone has it. If we're not gonna find it, someone has it, and they're lying about this. And she's also doing it to her own tribe when they're all supposed to be unified. They're the vibe tribe, and so
yeah,
when they get to emergent, there's like she's creating a dissension in the tribe. She's like, oh, trying to throw a target like on Tim's back,
mm,
and that's just I don't feel like that's gonna help because at this point I don't really think they're gonna lose. I think I hate to say it, but I think Yanni's losing again next week. Like, there's not really any other option. Like, also, what was the plan if Yanu did end up losing a person last week and then they had to compete again and then lose? They would have 2 people at this point. Like, and we're not
would have
planning
been
on a swap. Like,
would
what
have
is
been
going
a
on?
Shannon Ricard situation.
No,
I
but
think they I
even with
think they
the
would
Shannon
have
Ricard, they lost Ibrahim before, so there was still one person off, and they had the 2 people left and then merge. But they're sticking to this formula so much where they just can't do anything about it.
I
Like
don't know.
also it
It's,
would have given them like an extra, 2 days to work with in the schedule if they still went to tribal last week. Like they could have like done so much with that. They could have like add another reward challenge somehow. Like I know it takes planning and different things that you could also add more rest days. Like they just don't take advantage of those things and it's just the same exact formula. Like they know, hey, on day whatever, we're gonna merge. And I don't know.
yeah, yeah. Hate
I'm
to see
yapping
it.
now.
That's okay. Not Bonnie level yet, but we'll. I think for Jim, going back to that, yeah, the meta of this game is like, hey, get your original tribe, make a core, go through it. I think the issue, it might be to her benefit, but the issue with Jim is that she's not in the core. Like, a part of me truly thinks that like what will happen next episode is Green will go to tribal. Charlie and Mariah. I don't know.
Maria.
Maria. Oh my goodness, Maria. They side with Ben and Tim.
Yeah,
Take on Mariah. Thank goodness, so I don't have to figure out.
yeah.
And Jim's gonna be like,
And then
oh
Jim's
my
gonna be on the
god.
outs. Yeah,
She's gonna be on the outs, and then I think she'll maneuver her way throughout the merge, where that dissension will actually come into play. But that's pretty much the only way I can see it.
yeah. I could also see Soda going home next week if
Oh
it's
yeah,
Nami, because like outside of Hunter, they're not the strongest tribe, out there because they don't have Randon anymore. I think that hurt them at least in the a reward challenge. It was sad that Yanu couldn't pull it out and when it mattered, but like
true.
I've just been dying to see like lines in the sand from these other tribes, which we haven't gotten yet. So who knows?
Yeah, uh, there's definitely setup to the other tribes. I really hope Yanu doesn't go back. They need a break. I also like all three characters a lot,
Hmm.
and
And we've set them up so for like a long run, I feel like as
mm,
well. It doesn't feel right if we lose someone because we've had so much time with Yanu. If we're gonna lose another one from that tribe after spending so much time, if we get a full episode of Yanu again and then they end up going to tribal, like that's it's what are we doing?
I'd be so sad. I would be so sad to lose any of them. Like
Yeah,
at the, I'm so attached to them that
I
I don't think
I
any of them will win.
right.
But I think Tiff might be the final boss, if anything.
Yeah. I mean, Q's great. I just like he's a fun player to watch. And I enjoy his personality. He's just like super
I love
straight.
you personally.
Yeah, me too. And I'm not sure what he's gonna end up faring, because he's obviously a physical threat. And then they
Yeah.
also Bono threw out that him and Tiff were close. So that also puts a target on his back too when
Mm.
they, Burgatory, whatever.
Yeah.
He might be a big target there.
I feel like if they do go to tribal for Tiff specifically, I would vote out Q because if you're already perceived as a duo and Kinsey's perceived as the mastermind, then you could just be like, she manipulated me into doing it. Like
Hmm.
you get rid of your duo and then you raise Kinsey's threat level. It'd probably be her only move. That would
Right.
make sense in the book.
Yeah, if you're Tiff, that's definitely the move for her.
Yeah, but going into the final aspect of this, how did you feel about like tribal? It was probably the most open tribal I've seen in
Yeah.
a time. And
I
Jeff
mean,
always does it, but like this was really open.
right. And they're just like, yeah, we're all voting Bonu because, if there's a trouble with Bonu, everything's going to be out there. So, all the information's going to be out. Um, which
I
I
thought,
feel like adds a lot of intrigue and it's fun.
mhm.
Especially him getting up. What was it? The Jess tribal.
Yeah, he was just like, who do I need to vote for? And he's like,
Yeah.
stop making the block hot.
Yeah. Stop making the block hot. Um, I don't know. I didn't really have any positive or negative thoughts about it. It was
I thought it
interesting.
was interesting that Jeff was just like, all right, Bonu, whenever you want. Like they didn't vote or anything.
Yeah.
Like I was like, what if one of them was like lying?
Yeah, what if he was like secretly had an idol or something?
I knew like production knew at that
Yeah,
point from confessionals and everything, but I was just
right.
like, I was like, what if one of them just like Tiff was like, no, or like something crazy. Obviously, Bonnie was in an impossible situation.
Right.
No, like literally anything, which I do think is like a benefit of like the shot in the dark, where like usually in this situation, like you'd be like, what if it hits?
But with three out of the four people that have left not having a vote, like that's also another problem with these vote takeaway things, these losing your vote.
Hmm.
No, they don't have agency. They added the shot in the dark, but now they can't even use them because that happened to Jelinski. I know Randon didn't go to tribal, but he also didn't have a vote when he was taken out of the game. Like, just it's insane to me that
I
that's
love taking away votes.
they love doing it. I still don't really understand why. Like I feel like we've just seen every permutation like
Hmm.
of what is going to happen with people losing votes. Like they've done everything with it.
I kind
I
of
don't know.
wish like for Beware Advantage because I remember when it first like got introduced, everyone was like, "Oh wait, this is kind of sick." Like losing your vote to get an idol, I think was a pretty good evolution of the game. But I wish it wasn't just that. I wish it could be like, yeah, you're not losing your vote, you're losing your ability to compete in immunity. Like, or something along the lines of like outside of you losing your vote. Like it, I don't know. There's some way you can add it where you're not just like, oh no, I lost my vote.
Yeah.
Bummer.
It's like
No.
the more votes in the game, the more variables. Like I think the problem with like the merge, like usually the merge is so exciting because you have all these people coming together and
Mhm.
it's typically 13, 12 people, however many it is at the merge itself. You have 12 people voting. But in this case, you don't. You only have, they do the split tribe where they have 6 and 6, and that's, fun for what it is, but overall not so great. We have the half people immune, so just less variables. Taking away votes takes away people's agency, which takes away, you know, different things that can happen in a vote, which makes it more interesting. Like we get to have different conversations. Like that's what made Survivor great for 40 seasons, and then all of a sudden, and I like that we're trying new things, but if this is what is going to happen every time, like I don't know, it's hard to watch at this point. I'm just like frustrated with all the vote stuff, but like I'm not in a happy place with this season so far, and I'm sad to say that because we've got so much momentum. It was all hype last season. We got 90-minute episodes. We got
Intro
the
back.
theme back. We got the auction. We had just a great season with good players. You know, even like people like Sifu and Jay Maya. Sifu didn't really have a lot of game, but he was so fun. Like we didn't spend every waking moment with Sifu. If we did, we would have been so super annoyed with that. Um,
Yeah.
but like the fact that he was there and he was almost more of a side character, like he was super entertaining in that regard, and he played his part well. And he got robbed because
Mhm.
he didn't get it on the jury, which is crazy.
That was crazy.
But
Yeah, I don't know. I think 45 was a good example of like we had the main characters, we had D, we had Austin, we had Jake, we had the final three of like kind of the main characters, and then we had a lot of side characters that those three specifically influenced, and more so D and Austin. But this season, like you had also Emily, who was a main character, and then it switches to D, which I think is like the better route of like you not having one person you're focusing on the entire time, where we got to see people's parallel perspectives and how they navigate through that. And this season, like you can't even tell me like the main character other than like maybe Venus, but like Venus is not even the main character of her tribe. It's Tevin and Hunter, and you have Charlie's Angels, except it's more so Charlie, and it's I don't know, it's weird right now. I mean Jeff said it's the best season. I have high hopes for the merge. All that's the only
right.
thing I can really hold my head on. That I do
I'm
think
hoping
the
that
merge
we
might
actually see some game. And I think that's something that's been lacking. We had Jelinski go out crazy in style. We and I mean
robbed King.
not really much style. And then Jess not being able to do anything, so they had to take her out. We had Randon get medically evacuated. Then we had Banu, who's one of the biggest like goats we've seen in a long time.
Yeah,
Um,
great pre-merge character.
Great pre-merge characters. Like especially like Jelinski and Banu being on a starting tribe, like I feel like that's pretty iconic at this point. Um,
Wonderful.
yeah, but going forward, we've already talked about everything, but I'm hoping that we get to see other tribes go to tribal.
Mhm.
I'll be really sad if Yanni goes again, but I just don't have any way to see that it's not going to be that. So ultimately, I don't really have any more thoughts. Um, I hope you enjoyed listening and or watching the podcast this week and listening to me and Joel yap about what's going on in Survivor.
Awesome.
If you would, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel and like the video, as that helps us so much with, finding other Survivor fans in the community to uh find our content and to have another, community to talk about Survivor. We're super, super tiny. So if you're watching this, applaud you. It's amazing. And tell your friends about our channel as well, because we want to be a part of this Survivor community and make an impact on that and be a part of the conversation. And so, um, any last words, Joel?
No, sir. Hopefully things get better.
Hopefully things get better. All right. Well, we appreciate you guys once again. Stay tuned for next week as we recap episode 5. Goodbye.